Some of you will see the Toronto Blue Jays and the World Series champion Kansas City Royals, led by all-star George Brett. And then from beautiful Hilton Head, Chris Everett Lloyd is among the semifinalists in the Family Circle Cup. But first, Major League Baseball, an inside look at baseball, and a preview of today's game of the week. Brought to you by Honda Power Equipment, lawnmowers, lawn tractors, and portable generators made to last. And by Beneficial, when you talk to the manager, you're talking to the boss.
And a good afternoon, everyone. I'm Marv Albert in New York, and welcome to the start of NBC's coverage of the 1986 baseball season. And we are opening with a couple of attractive games. Some of you will see the Mets and the Phillies in Philadelphia. Steve Carlton going against Sid Fernandez, and these are two clubs that don't like each other. They have already had a couple of beanball incidents in spring training. And some of you will see the champion Kansas City Royals go against the Toronto Blue Jays in Kansas City. Dennis Leonard, a three-time 20-game winner, going for the Royals. A knee injury has sidelined him for nearly 3 years, so he is on the comeback trail. Dennis has had 4 operations the last 3 years. He says he has a 35-year-old head, a 30-year-old arm, and an 85-year-old knee. We'll be switching to the ballparks in just a bit for the voices of Vince Scully, Joe Garagiola, Bob Costas, and Tony Kubek. Bob, of course, coming off his successful co-hosting stint last night of Friday Night Videos. Next week, Bob will be touring with Frankie Avalon, Bobby Rydell, and Fabian. All right, this 1986 baseball season got underway last Monday in presidential fashion. The traditional first pitch, a wild throw in Baltimore. But the second right on target, it was a strike. And then, with the pressure off, President Reagan settled down in the dugout to take in a few innings, sign a few baseballs. Super Bowl champion Chicago Bears coach Mike Ditka did his Jim McMahon impersonation, ruled his first pitch an incompletion. As with other opening days, there were some highs. And some lows. In Detroit last Monday, Red Sox outfielder Dwight Evans hit the very first pitch of the season for a home run. Now, this may be the first time this was ever accomplished. They are still checking out the record books. Detroit Tigers outfielder Kirk Gibson answered Evans' home run with 2 of his own. Gibson opening with 2 homers, 5 RBIs on opening day. And another first. Will Clark of the San Francisco Giants in his first Major League at-bat hit a Major League home run. Another rookie, Texas Ranger pitcher Jose Guzman chalked up a win on opening day at his first Major League outing. First rookie pitcher to do it since Fernando. In St. Louis, Ozzie Smith banned for the backflip. So his 4-year-old son did the honors. Opening day excitement saw the Pittsburgh Parrot lose his head. But Montreal infielder Tim Wallach took the whole thing lying down. Perhaps the most bizarre first of the week, Yankee pitcher Ed Whitson blasted by George Brett. And once again, hearing it from Yankee fans, Whitson coming off last season's bad start, and his hotel brawl with Billy Martin has been unmercifully booed by Yankee fans. So manager Lou Piniella said from now on, Whitson will only pitch on the road, and that appears to be a baseball first. Well, that is one side of this new baseball season, but Kirk Gibson, who is off to such an excellent start, may be the focus of a legal battle in the months ahead. Now, the Players Association has filed a grievance charging that the owners got together and decided not to bid on Gibson and this year's crop of free agents. If the charges are true, this is called collusion, and it's against the law. Donald Fear, head of the Players Union, says you don't need a smoking gun to see what's going on here. There's no doubt in my mind there was collusion regarding Kirk Gibson. And Gibson is just the tip of the iceberg. Players declared free agency, and only lesser players change ball clubs. Apparently, no rival team seriously bid on Gibson or Carlton Fisk or relief man Donnie Moore. Now, Bud Selig, the president of the Milwaukee Brewers, denied the charges. He said, no one talked about Gibson at the owners' meeting. No one will tell me how to cut my payroll. He said the party's over. Yankee owner George Steinbrenner, according to the New York Daily News, said that baseball commissioner Peter Ueberroth got us together on numerous occasions, always with 4 lawyers in the room to go guard against anything that could be construed as collusion. And finally, Kirk Gibson's agent, Doug Baldwin, told NBC Sports that the Atlanta Braves offered Gibson a 5-year contract, but the agent said that 2 days after the commissioner visited owner Ted Turner, they reduced the offer to 3 years. And a week later, they were not interested at all. The Braves would not comment on this. Well, the baseball commissioner, Peter Ueberroth, is in our studio. We'll hear his views on this matter when we return after these messages. Back in New York, Marv Albert with the Commissioner of Baseball, Peter Ueberroth, and I understand that you were taking the action yesterday in Cleveland on a very brisk day. Is it true that you did not wear the top coat?
Oh, I wore the top coat and the sweater and the gloves, and but I enjoyed the ball game.
All right, what is your reaction to the charges of collusion concerning the lack of movement of free agents?
Well, if you're talking about Kirk Gibson, if he continues to play anywhere like he's playing now, I mean, he's worth all of the league. I mean, you can't pay him enough. I watched him in Cleveland just be outstanding. But I don't see collusion. Salaries in baseball, unknown fact until this moment we speak about it, this year from last year will go up about $30 million. So the spiral is still continuing of increased amounts of money being paid to players. Free agency, I think, is going to continue as it has in the past. What happened last year is the owners opened the books. There was not a lot of talented players other than Kirk Gibson. And also, there was the first time in baseball in a long time that people the year before had not had good success with free agents. You know, the players that went into free agency the year before did not perform very well. Those factors made it really kind of hold free agency down, but it's alive and well.
But isn't it curious, you take a guy like Gibson with his credentials, and he's on the rise, that there was no one interested in even talking money with Gibson's agent? I could understand the cases of a Juan Benitez or Rod Carew because of his age, and that could backfire. But how could it be that no one was interested in Gibson?
Basically, there's usually only about a half a dozen clubs that are interested in free agency. There's 10, 15 clubs that just never get in the marketplace. And those that did had just opened their books and embarrassed themselves and, threw all that red ink forward for the world to see and said, look at how terribly we're doing. And they just took a big, deep breath of air and said, we're not going to be in that market.
So you're saying it is possible that no other club, even with the needs that they would want to go for that kind of money for Kirk Gibson?
Not last year. Also, there's a guy, Kirk Gibson, who is beloved in his community, grew up there, went to college there, was a superstar in other sports. And they think twice yanking that kind of individual. You think twice, George Brett in Kansas City. He is Kansas City. I mean, he's really the whole team. I think there's going to be a lot of that in the future. If somebody is established in a community, they'll think it over before they yank them to another community.
Well, I'm told Atlanta owner Ted Turner was interested in Gibson, and then there was a meeting in which you were involved with the Braves, and suddenly there was no interest. Is that accurate?
Not accurate at all. I was down there for the Martin Luther King Foundation meeting, the Holiday Commission, and there's no truth in that at all. Anybody ought to know, and you in television business ought to know very clearly, nobody tells Ted Turner what to do.
All right, to another subject. Now, you have been saying that baseball is drug-free. I know you modified that. At first you said you feel it's drug-free.
It is really drug-free, and the fans are going to learn that. The parents, and they can take their kids to the ballpark and see really a drug-free sport. Oh, there may be an incident now and then, very small. But the reason the drug problem is over in baseball is the players have dignity. And the players have said enough is enough. And they're tired of talking about the problem, hearing about it, and they're taking several steps. And, very few had the problem to start with. So it's over with. And talk is cheap. Marv, you're going to see it. As the season progresses, this sport's not going to have a drug problem.
That appears to be a sweeping statement. I know you've taken measures to try and prevent it, but how can you just declare that the sport now is drug-free? I mean, there are youngsters coming into the game all the time. There are possibilities of other things occurring.
The youngsters all have been tested in the minor leagues on a regular basis, and we know the record's there. We know that minor leagues are virtually drug-free, and so all the youngsters graduating, but mainly the players have dignity, and they've said enough is enough. They know the problems, they've learned a lesson, and after all, we both can make projections, but you have me on record. You watch. This season will be virtually drug-free.
Commissioner, what is your reaction to the feeling by some that you are actually positioning yourself to run for political office in California?
Well, the day that I could run, I could legally become a candidate, has now passed. I can't become a candidate till 1992, so that rumor ought to be a pop fly that somebody catches and we forget about.
You'll still be a young man in 1992.
Well, listen, let's see. I'll be in the mid to late 50s. Who knows what happens then? I'll have to. The next election I face is in 3 or 4 years to see if they elect me as commissioner again.
So you are saying you will still be commissioner of baseball a year from now?
Till I get thrown out. And I said that the baseball players should have a voice, so should the umpires, and we'll see. It's a great sport, off to a good year.
Okay, Commissioner, thank you for coming by.
My pleasure.
All right, Peter Ueberroth, baseball commissioner, and we'll be back right after we pause for these words.
Indianapolis has a rich heritage of baseball, and one night in 1973 we were out at the baseball park, Bush Memorial Stadium, and it was a Little League night, and thousands of parents and their little leaguers were there. And in the middle of the third inning, we realized there was some kind of a ruckus, some kind of a commotion going on in the Indians' dugout, and we looked over, and Pedro Bourbon was just slapping the hell out of a teammate, and he was on top of him, and he was doing this to him, just, both hands by the throat, just choking the life out of this guy. And each one of those little leaguers, as they left, they all said together, this was the best night ever.
Indeed, the walls may be closing in on that man. There are 5 other games going this afternoon, and we'll be keeping you posted with updates during the course of the day right here on NBC Sports. Coming up, some of you will be seeing the Mets and the Phillies from Veterans Stadium in Philadelphia, or the Royals and the Blue Jays from Kansas City. Thank you for tuning in. This is Marv Albert. Let's head to the ballpark.
1980, the Royals are on their way to the World Series. Dennis Leonard will win 20 for the 3rd time in his career. This one clinches the division title against the Angels. But in May of 1983, he pitches here to Cal Ripken of the Orioles, slips off the mound, tears a tendon below his left kneecap. Since then, 4 knee operations, a return to the minor leagues, and now, 3 years after his last big league start, Dennis Leonard returns to the mound this afternoon for the Royals, starting against Toronto.
National Broadcasting Company, now in its 6th decade of bringing you baseball's memories. Baseball's milestones. Baseball's majesty. And baseball's magical moments. NBC Sports proudly presents the Major League Baseball Game of the Week. Today, from Royal Stadium in Kansas City, it's the Toronto Blue Jays versus the Kansas City Royals. The Game of the Week is brought to you by Miller Lite. For great taste, there is only one light beer. By Ford and your local Ford dealer. Have you driven a Ford lately? By Armor All. It's the finishing touch every time you wash your car. And by Hyponex Lawn and Garden Products. Hyponex. Spread the word.
Royal Stadium on a perfect Saturday afternoon for baseball. Toronto is opened with 3 wins in their first 4 starts. The Royals have lost 3 of their first 4. Jim Acker starts for Toronto, and a truly amazing story, Dennis Leonard on the mound this afternoon for Kansas City. Hello again, everybody. Bob Costas with Tony Kubek. Welcome to another season of baseball on NBC. And we begin it, as I said, with an incredible tale. Dennis Leonard back for his first start in 3 years.
You know, I think Dennis Leonard's a little ticked. Most of the people around here, yesterday especially interviewing him, were saying, you're back, as if that was the challenge. To him, that's not the challenge. To him, the challenge is still getting hitters out, which he thinks he can do, and becoming a winning pitcher, and winning a spot in the starting staff with Danny Jackson down on what may be as good a starting staff in baseball.
Jim Acker starts today for Toronto. What about him?
He was groomed all spring as the 5th starter, or in the event the Blue Jays made a trade for either Doyle Alexander or Jim Clancy, he can have wicked stuff. I would think, like a lot of teams are learning very quickly, he's going to want to avoid pitching to George Brett.
Quickly here, and we'll get into it in depth during the course of the game. Do these teams deserve to be favored in their respective divisions to repeat?
Not much respect, Bob, has been given to the Blue Jays, even though they led the American League in team ERA last year in a tough ballpark to pitch in. Their pitching staff should be stronger with guys like Gordon and Eichhorn, although they do have some men on the disabled list. Veterans, and maybe the veterans on the disabled list makes them a stronger staff at this point. 4 teams in that division, any of 4 could win it. I think the Yankees have the best team on paper. I really think that Baltimore and Earl Weaver are going to win this thing. Kansas City, I think the reverence toward George Brett shown by Bobby Cox last year will get around through the league, and if they don't pitch to him, which I don't think they should, I don't think Kansas City's going to win it. California might.
They walked him intentionally 31 times last year, and they managed to win the World Championship.
Jimmy Leland walked him intentionally in spring training. How's that for reverence?
Now, he thinks Earl Weaver and the Orioles are going to win it. He thinks the Yankees are best on paper. We will challenge these assertions when we come back. In his first big league start in nearly 3 years, Dennis Leonard prepares to face this Blue Jay lineup. Lloyd Mosby, the leadoff man this year. He plays center field. Tony Fernandez, the young shortstop, up to the number 2 slot. Rance Mullenix will play third base and hit third. First baseman Willie Upshaw is the cleanup man. George Bell in left field batting 5th. Jesse Barfield will play right field. Cecil Fielder has taken over for Cliff Johnson as the everyday DH. Buck Martinez, back off the broken leg at age 37, is the catcher. Damaso Garcia, last year's leadoff man, dropped to 9th. Dennis Leonard will be 35 in a month, and as he walks from the bullpen toward the dugout, they come to their feet at Royal Stadium. Not quite the crowd they had yesterday for their home opener when they sold the place out, but everybody here salutes Dennis Leonard. Before the injury, Tony, how good was he? Where did he rank among the game's elite?
Well, he has won 20 ball games 3 times in a Royals uniform. Talked to Steve Busby yesterday, a man who had his career torn up, pitched 2 no-hitters before he was 20, a member of the staff. He was on the staff with Leonard when they broke in. He said he was as good as anybody. When Galen Cisco taught him the slider, it added to his great curveball. Always had the good fastball, struck out a lot, didn't walk many, good fielder. He will really feel the emotion when that foot hits the rubber when he goes out, and there'll be even a bigger ovation.
Take a look at the defense behind Dennis Leonard, Tony. He doesn't have Toronto's defense behind him. We'll switch it to the Royals' defense in just a moment. As I said, Leonard will be 35 in a month. He also sustained a serious injury prior to the knee injury that has kept him sidelined and forced him to endure 4 knee operations during the last 3 years. That occurred in 1982 when he fractured his right index and middle fingers. That was the first major injury of his career, when he was struck by a line drive off Buddy Bell's bat, and that put him out for most of the 1982 season. So really, he hasn't had a full year since 1981.
And Dennis Leonard turns that into a positive. He says, you know, my arm's had a 3-year rest. He pitched well this spring, 4 or 5 times out. He talked more yesterday about a home run he had against Rick Onby, the Cardinals, an exhibition game, his last spring training outing. He has come up with an outstanding straight change also. It'll be interesting to see how he moves around. His damaged knee is his left one. And he says, again, along with Steve Busby, that fortunately it was the left knee. If it were the back knee, the right leg, he's kind of a, what they call a drop and drive pitcher. He would not have been able to pose on that right leg and push off, and it would have been more severe of an injury and might have ended his career. But left leg they did not feel was as serious. Similar injury, incidentally, to Pedro Guerrero's. And Dennis Leonard said, they keep saying Guerrero's going to be back in 3 months. He said, I know what it took me almost 3 years along with trainer Mickey Cobb. He said, if he comes back in 3 months, he's got a different injury than I have.
Important to clarify, though, similar, not necessarily identical.
His tendons were completely severed from the patellar kneecap, and Leonard found his kneecap off to the side. And apparently, Pedro Guerrero's kneecap slid up on his knee, but he did still have some attachment. Guerrero, his were completely severed.
And at third base, John McLaren.
Behind Dennis Leonard,
Leading off for the Blue Jays.
Lonnie Smith in left. Yes, he will mess up a ball on occasion, but he also will outrun some baseballs. Willie Wilson, nobody chases him down like Willie. Darryl Motley in right today because Rudy Law, acquisition of a couple of weeks ago, injured left elbow. Brett Salazar, White, Balboni, Sundberg catching.
Mosby steps in 3 for 4 with a homer yesterday. Bluffs the bunt and takes a strike.
And did you see Dennis Leonard? A little bit of a key. As soon as he threw that pitch, he was on the artificial surface. He had broke to his right in the event the bunt was laid down, so he showed good mobility, at least on one pitch.
A ball and a strike. The Blue Jays and Clancy defeated Gubazar and the Royals yesterday 6-2. You saw Mosby's numbers for 1985. He boldly told me before the game he expects 30 homers and about 50 steals this year from the leadoff spot. Off Leonard's gloves, Salazar takes care of Mosby. And Salazar is something of a story here. This is his 4th organization. At the age of 24, he's been with the Expos, the Cardinals, and the Mets. In limited major league duty, he's only been a 166 lifetime hitter. But he hit over 300 in the Winter League at Caracas, Venezuela, playing for Royals coach Jose Martinez. And on Martinez's recommendation, the Royals brought him over here, and Hauser feels that in the long run, Salazar will hit and produce more offense than Buddy Biancalana would have.
He adds a little more speed. He can steal you a base. He does get his bat on the ball, so you can start base runners. It's interesting on that ball hit back to Leonard, although on pitch 1, he was mobile. On the ball hit back to him on the stiff left leg, that's the injured leg, he didn't move that well. He had trouble pushing off to his right.
Fernandez takes a ball. How will his approach differ? He hit 9th last year. He's in the 2nd slot this season.
He will take more pitches in the event Mosby gets on. Mosby's also said he will steal at least 50 bases this year. Tony's always been a disciplined hitter.
Drags a bunt. Balboni fields, goes to the bag himself, and with the dive, he got him. Now, what about Leonard getting off the mound?
You said it. He didn't get over there quickly enough. Balboni had to take it himself. I'm not so sure that is as much yet. It's not an indication. Just a couple of hitters that he can't move. Perhaps just a mental lapse, so charged up.
Batting third,
in his first start in 3 years. Balboni saw it. How about ball players? Do you think they care about Dennis Leonard's knee at all if you're on the opposition? Mosby's faked the bunt. Now Fernandez does bunt. Blue Jays don't do that very often. Nice play, Balboni.
And now Leonard confers with Sundberg. Sundberg with 6 Gold Gloves to his credit. And when you talk to John Schuerholz, the bright young general manager, and when you talk to Hauser, they credit Sundberg with a lot of the success of the young pitching staff. What a difference he made when he came over last year. Mullenix with 2 out and nobody on.
Well, Sundberg credits catching people like Gaylord Perry, Ferguson Jenkins. We're talking about pitchers who later in their career had to adjust to be not throwers but pitchers. He said, they taught me more than any manager, hitting coach, any other pitcher.
The 0-1. Called strike. And in a good spot.
That was a straight change. He's come up with a beauty. One time, Dennis Leonard got the ball up to the plate in the low 90s. Good movement on the ball. And obviously, he's not going to throw that hard anymore because of age and the knee, possibly.
Breaking ball in the dirt. I spoke with Mike Shannon, who broadcast the Cardinal games. They sort of reprised the World Series, the last 2 games of the exhibition season, first in Memphis, then in Little Rock. And Mike saw Leonard pitch and was impressed not only with his velocity, but with his command of his entire repertoire.
He had an outstanding curveball when he came up as a kid.
The 1-2. And it holds.
And Galen Cisco was his pitching coach. He taught them, and I think he teaches that pitch as well as anybody. Some say a cut fastball. It's a fastball that runs in on the fist of a left-hander. It's really a true slider. Now people call, or some pitchers, a pitch that breaks 2 feet sometimes and is slower, a slider, and it's not the true slider. Well, he's got a true slider.
on his fists, lifted foul. Brett chasing over Smith, and it falls safely.
You see another reason right there why he is such a good pitcher. He pitches inside, keeps hitters off the plate. He'll jam them, won't let them get the arms extended, which most hitters like to do.
You know, Leonard disputes the notion that modern players with guaranteed contracts lose their desire. He's very adamant about making that point. He was at the beginning of a 5-year deal paying about $800,000 a year when he sustained his injury. He could have rested on that, but no, he wanted to come back, and he has. Struck him out to end the inning. Dick Hauser figures he can get a total of 150 stolen bases between Lonnie Smith, Willie Wilson, and Rudy Law, who is not in the lineup today as he took a pitch off his elbow yesterday, but will play a lot this season for Kansas City. He's got Smith and Wilson at the top, followed by Brett. McRae is the cleanup man in DH. Frank White, who hit cleanup during the World Series, bats 5th. Steve Balboni in the 6th spot. Darrell Motley is the right fielder. Jim Sundberg will catch. And Angel Salazar, the shortstop.
Perhaps the overall best outfield in the game. Those three guys in Blue Jays uniforms, they're still just 26. When you think of running, throwing, hitting for power, stealing bases, instinct in all areas, there they are. Bell, Mosby, Barfield. Munlichs, Fernandez, he's got a little bit of a sprained ankle, jammed it in spring training. Garcia, who has struggled defensively at second. Willie Upshaw. Buck Martinez catching for Ernie Whitten, who's got a bad back. He's on a winning streak. And Jim Acker.
And leading off for the Kansas City Royals.
His record in '85, up until the All-Star break, he appeared in 50 ball games for the Blue Jays. In the second half of the year with Dennis Lamp hot, he got in only 11 games. Up and in for a ball to Lonnie Smith.
Basically, a low ball pitcher. Sinks the ball, runs it. An outstanding knuckle curve. He throws a wicked slider, and he's worked on a change for 18 months. Got it down now.
Fernandez. He made more than 30 errors a year ago, but you still view him as the American League's best with the glove.
Among them, Alfredo Griffin made 30. He won a gold glove playing on dirt and grass. Tony makes a lot of throws on the run. You have the tendency to say he throws off balance, but really his center of gravity is usually underneath him. Now he's going to get the sunglasses as the clouds move away from Royal Stadium here. Sandy Dominican right there. That must be what? I think about 34 and 35. That was on the September rosters last year. Players from the Dominican Republic. They had those from Puerto Rico, Venezuela, some other Latin American countries. They've got to be 75 or 80.
Toronto organization, headed by Pat Gillick, really has done a great job of seeking that Dominican talent and bringing it to his team.
Number 6.
Pirates with Howie Hake, pioneer down there. El Campanis from the Dodgers, a pioneer down there. Now all major league clubs, or almost all, have winter camps in the Dominican.
Strike call to Wilson. In the last week of the regular season in 1985, he was moved to the second spot. First time he had hit anywhere other than leadoff since 1979. And he will be in the number 2 spot throughout this year, Hauser says.
Hauser talked about him yesterday and again the day before the game. He said he is struggling. He said, but the first time that I can see in his eyes since the drug-related scandal around here in Kansas City, he's had that fire in his eyes back. And he said he's chasing the ball down in Yankee Stadium in spring training like never before.
How about the Ueberroth statement on the pregame show? The game is virtually drug-free and will be throughout this season.
I think there's still some people who may have a problem through addiction with cocaine, but I think you better start talking about those drugs that may be worse than any for society. And I'm not excluding cocaine, heroin, and the rest. I'm talking about booze and amphetamines.
A little pop. Fernandez retreating. In comes Bell. And it's George Bell. That is an interesting subject, one we can't treat in the depth it deserves here, but it is interesting that people recoil in horror when you talk of cocaine, and rightly so, and yet are not nearly as upset when, for example, someone is arrested for driving under the influence of alcohol. Brett was 2 for 3 yesterday. Both of his hits were doubles. He also had a walk, and the one time they got him, he hit a rocket to first base that Willie Upshaw caught in self-defense. Goes to the opposite field, and Bell gets there.
His ball sounds good off his bat, doesn't it? It explodes. You can hear it up here.
So both teams go out in order in the first, and we'll be back in just a minute. When he had it all working, this is where Dennis Leonard ranked. During that stretch, only Steve Carlton won more games than the Royal right-hander. And as we mentioned, he was a 20-game winner for Kansas City 3 times, most recently in 1980.
And it's not unusual that you don't get the respect in the Midwest like this, like you do in the Eastern Seaboard or the West Coast. Quisenberry did not get much respect for a long time. Hauser's got to be happy that not just that Leonard had a 3-up, 3-down inning in the first inning, but the fact that he didn't walk anybody. So the first 4 ball games, Kansas City has walked 23. Even Charlie Liebrand, a control pitcher, walked 6.
Gubazar walked 6 yesterday.
Toronto staff, on the other hand, through their first 4 ball games, walked just 9. Boy, a lot of those runners the other day came home to score.
Upshaw off to a fast start. 6 of his first 14, including a homer. That computes to 429.
The thing about a Dennis Leonard is, as a hitter, you cannot go up to the plate and sit on one pitch, especially the first pitch. Started Upshaw with a good curveball. He can start you with a straight change, the slider, the curve, and a couple of different kinds of fastballs and throw them for strikes. You're immediately in the hole before he even pitches.
And the 0-2. Took a little off, and Upshaw got a piece of it.
Leonard didn't like that pitch. He made an 0-2 pitch too good, a slider that just backed up and stayed outside. You could see him pound the ground after he released the ball. Watch the reaction on this pitch, an 0-2 that he knows he got away with. Upshaw's always been a good spring hitter.
Out of play. Larry Barnett is the plate umpire. Nick Bremigan at first. Rocky Rowe at second. John Hirschbeck at third. 60 degrees at game time in Kansas City.
A wind blowing out of the northwest that is blowing quite briskly. You see the flag in left field toward right field. Anything in the air to right will keep on going. Anything to left in the air will be stopped somewhat.
You look at the Blue Jays, they won 99 a year ago. Only one pitcher, Alexander, won as many as 15. None of their young players had the years they're capable of having. 2-2. Upshaw, Mosby, Bell, Barfield, they were all contributors. They had good years, but none reached the peak of their potential. For that reason, they feel very optimistic about their chances of repeating.
Jim Clancy and Doyle Alexander, who pitched 2 good games surrounding Acker on the bench.
This might get over Willie's head. No, he gets back.
Forget about that. The first times I saw this guy, League Championship Series, I made the statement he chases the ball down as well as Willie Mays. I didn't say he was as good an outfielder because he doesn't throw like Willie, doesn't have the showmanship flair. But he does. He covers as much ground as Willie Mays in his prime. Willie McGee does too, I believe, with that blazing speed.
Of course, one difference is Willie Mays, when he first captured the public imagination, played at the Polo Grounds. All that ground to cover. He could run back 450 feet and make a catch. There aren't many ballparks that give you that kind of room to roam anymore. A ball to Bell. Another key when you talk about the Blue Jays and their chance of repeating. Tom Henke established himself as a starter in the last month and a half, as a stopper rather. Last month and a half. They'll have him for the full season. Popped up, and it's White.
Little slider catches Bell just on the end of the bat. Started after, it looks so much like that fastball. Quick breaking at the end. He doesn't get much of it. Danny Jackson, who has got about 6 more days to go on the disabled list, threw for the first time yesterday. Not an arm problem with bone chips in the ankle. Gary Blaylock, the pitching coach in the background. The wind may blow this back fair.
Lonnie Smith over to the line.
Hey, it bounced. Lonnie lost it, and it bounced on the warning track.
No.
What did it do?
They're ruling a home run.
Ground rule
ruling
double.
is home run. They say it hit the foul pole.
Foul pole?
Yeah.
Oh, no. That ball didn't hit the foul pole. The umpire lost it, too. That ball was pushed back into the park by the wind. I'm going to have to see a replay of it, but from my mind's eye view, that ball blew back, and I believe the umpire got fooled by Lonnie Smith, because Lonnie thought it was in the seats. He almost flipped his glasses up. Larry Barnett is coming down from home plate, and he's going to say...
Now here comes Williams.
Yeah, that ball bounced in. The umpire got fooled. He either lost it in the sun, running down the line. That's the third base umpire, John Hirschbeck. And Larry Barnett, the home plate umpire, very alertly is going to overrule this call, I hope, and send that runner back to second base for ground rule double. I believe the umpire at third lost that ball because he watched Lonnie Smith instead of the ball. It's a tough call. That's why they have 6 in postseason play. The ball went over his head. The wind, you could see pushing it back. Watch Lonnie. He thinks it's in the seat. Watch her bounce behind him. Behind him. Right there. 8-10 feet away. Hit nothing. They're going to send it back. Great call by Larry Barnett. The last rule of the book, instruction of the umpire, says very simply, no matter what you do, get it right. And Larry Barnett got it right. There it is. Oh, yeah. No question.
Designated hitter.
The wind just pushed it back. You could see it when it left the bat. That ball was going to hook off the bat of... Ball was going to hook probably 10 feet foul until the wind pushed it back in. Good camera work, guys. Andy Rosenberg, our director. John Filippelli, our producer, and a great call by Barnett.
It was up there forever, wasn't it?
Uh-huh.
Here is Cecil Fielder. And he sends one into shallow left, and it's Salazar. So the Blue Jays thought briefly that they had a lead. Instead, Barfield is given a double. Lonnie Smith was confused, but it didn't cost the Royals. No score after 1.5.
Marv Albert in New York. Steve Carlton continues to have his problems in the Mets' second in Philly. Ray Knight connecting for his first home run of the season and his very first at-bat this season. Mets, who scored 9 runs last night, off to a 2-0 lead in the second. Back to Bob breakdancing Costas.
Back to Bob what?
Marv getting his barbs in early, in mid-season form already.
We showed you the U.S. flag up high above the stadium. What they're doing here, the 6 flags that have been a big part of this history of the Royals franchise. Joe Burke, John Sherholz, Mr. Fogelman, Mr. Kaufman. They hoisted the World Championship flag. Those 6 are new this year. Boy, those guys, when they got those World Series rings, the first base foul line, did they whip those boxes open in a hurry to look at them?
McRae swings on the first one. Mosby chases it into left center and makes the catch.
Interesting to see if McRae can be the DH for an entire season at his age like he was the last 3 months of last year when he was very important to the flag chase.
Well, they say they will rest him day games after night games. He'll probably appear in 120 ball games if everything goes according to plan.
You know, with the 24-man roster now, the luxury of carrying 2 designated hitters may be something a team can't afford anymore. They've got Orta on the bench also.
How long do you think that's going to last?
First time a pitcher pinch runs and injures a leg. Like a Brett Saberhagen or Ricky Wright in Texas or Steve in Toronto, and they hurt a good pitcher.
Strike 1 to White. His figures from 85. This telecast presented by authority of Major League Baseball. Don't dare reproduce or retransmit it in any form without the express written consent of Major League Baseball.
You know, that 24-man roster has nothing to do with saving a lot of money. I don't know what they're saving by that one spot on the roster, $150,000. If you can adjust your figures to whatever you want. Really, it's just another wedge on the part of ownership to turn the screws on the Players Association, saying, hey, look, we can take another one thing away from you.
Oh, Tony, you old union man.
I'm a militant, I admit.
White goes down swinging. Has management ever been in the right?
Yeah.
Batting 6, number...
We'll recite all those instances as the game goes along, of course.
Acker, almost everything he throws, moves very well. He's got better movement downstairs than up. That may have been, no, it was a fastball that stayed upstairs. Not a perfect pitch, but we talked about him working with that circle change for about 18 months with Doyle Alexander. He can pitch to spots. He loosened up 3 days ago in Texas before a ball game to get ready for this start. And Al Widmar, the pitching coach, said if he has the kind of stuff in the game on Saturday like he had in the pen in Texas, he said he had no it stuff. They won about 6 good innings out of him here. Mike Ferraro at third. You think he doesn't respect the power of Balboni?
It's only prudent, especially on AstroTurf.
Former Indians manager, Yankee third base coach.
Jose Martinez, the coach at first. Balboni becomes the second straight to fan against Acker, so he set down 6 Royals in a row, and after 2, no score in Kansas City. We'll be back after these messages from your local station. Royals trainer Mickey Cobb, who knows something about adversity. He battled polio earlier in his life. He worked with Dennis Leonard 4 or 5 hours a day during his rehabilitation, and Dennis really credits Mickey Cobb in large part for his standing where he is right now on the mound at Royal Stadium 3 years since his last big league start.
You know, one of the things they did medically, and I can't explain it all obviously to Dennis Leonard, they took a cadaver and took some of the tendons out of a cadaver and implanted them in his knee, the bad knee, and some of it, due to an infection, is gone, but there's still some of the tendons attaching the patella from that cadaver. You think medical science hasn't not only prolonged, I see this look on your face like you think this is too macabre of a story, or
who performed this operation? Dr. Frankenstein? Speaking of comebacks, Buck Martinez whacks one to short right at Salazar, and he's thrown out. Considering Martinez's age, 37 now, and the gruesome injury he sustained last year, multiple fracture of his leg in that home plate collision, few thought he'd make it back at all, let alone be starting every game so far this year, with Ernie Witt suffering from a bad back.
Well, during the wintertime, and even during spring training, they were looking for a right-hand hitting catcher, but the more Jimmy Williams played Buck Martinez, the more they seemed to win, the more he seemed to stabilize their pitching staff, and there's more to this game than just hitting a baseball and running fast, especially if you play his position. Calling a game, setting a game up for the young pitchers.
Breaking ball moves Garcia away. In '85, Damaso drove in a career-high 65 runs and hit that very respectable 282, but he walked only 15 times in more than 600 plate appearances, and that wasn't acceptable for a leadoff man. Williams ruffled his feathers a little bit by moving him to the 9th spot. Garcia was openly upset at the start of spring training, but he's accepted it now. And maybe it's good for a new manager to make a bold move like that early and assert himself. Laced to center field, Willie Wilson gracefully back.
Is he pretty to watch? Some say the most exciting play in baseball is a triple. I think the most exciting play in baseball is an inside the park home run by Willie Wilson. I think I've seen 3 or 4 of those.
Well, he'll give you both. He led the American League with 21 triples last year. Mosby grounded to short to open the game. Now here's one I know you'll relate to, Tony. I think Mosby looks like Little Richard.
They call him a muttonhead. No, they don't. They call him mullion. That's a term in baseball when you're not too beautiful.
Well, he's a nice-looking guy.
He is, but they call him that affectionately. They'd like to see him pull the ball a little more. There's the changeup and the action on it. Two-dimensional change, not the straight change off the fastball. Almost a little forkball action down, change of speeds and change of directions.
Now here's a test for Leonard. Yep. Mosby runs well, no throw.
He's not as agile or as mobile as he was before the injury, but you couldn't expect him to be, could you? It's interesting to see he went down more on the right leg. He sinks a fastball away. A little bit of limping, and you could see how he didn't plant the right foot nor really put a lot of weight on the left foot.
Watch the little hitch before he attempts to crouch to pick up the ball. That's where you see him still favoring it.
Isn't it interesting how you put a magnifying glass on a guy like this after the injury? And you should, I guess, because he's concerned. He thinks his leg now, because the muscles have been strengthened so, are much stronger than before the injury. Through the rehab, the use of the Cybex machine and all else.
Watch Mosby at first. Leonard is.
And there's a spot right there where, if any mobility is gone, a pickoff move. He always had a good pickoff move, but if you can't transfer the weight from the right to the left foot to make that throw as quickly as you have to do on a pickoff, he may not be as effective on his pickoff move. You don't have to move as deliberate or as quickly toward home plate. You do toward first if you're going to pick somebody off.
Outside, Brett is in close at third base. Fernandez has the capability of slapping one by in this situation.
I would think this is a count right here for Lloyd Moseby if he can get a jump. There's 4 or 5 different steal signs. It's usually a pick your pitch, not go on this one. If he can get a jump, he'll go. Get in scoring position with 2 outs. It's thrown out. Sundberg has a quick release. 1 foot on the turf. Look at Leonard change his pattern. Hold the ball. Try and get the base stealer to go back on his heels. They stay poised on the balls of their feet too long. Your legs get tense, so when they back up on their heels, that's when you'd like to be able to go home.
Want to know the count to Fernandez, and Moseby chase back. We're in the top of the third, and now Sundberg and Leonard want to talk it over. No score.
Perhaps getting a pickoff sign straightened out, or perhaps asking his catcher, do you see anything he's doing down at first base that may tip off whether he's running or not, leaning one way or the other?
Moseby not going, called strike. You know, you were talking about the 24-man rosters, and you speculated it would come to an end when a pitcher pinch running. That's the new third base coach. Jimmy Williams moving from the coaching lines to the dugout as the manager. John McLaren had managed in the Blue Jays minor league system. Forget about a pitcher being injured, although that might be a factor. You get into a pennant race, as soon as somebody adds a 25th for an edge, all the other contenders have to follow. They're not going to want to play shorthanded. There he goes. Bad start, and he is in there anyway. He didn't get a good jump.
He got a break. It was a breaking ball. And also, Sundberg had to backhand and almost take it out of the dirt, and that took that fraction of a second from the release. And watch Sundberg. When he had to go down and then had to throw over the top of the head of the left-handed hitter, all those took, splits of a second, and it gave Moseby the extra step even with a bad jump, and he's in. I'll tell you, Sundberg making this pretty close for having to dig that ball out backhand.
The count 2-1 to Tony Fernandez.
Fernandez spent his winter DHing in the Dominican leagues, winter leagues, led the league in hitting, trying to rest that shoulder. He played all 161 games last year.
Fernandez is a switch hitter. What little power he has seems to be from the left side. All 4 of his homers in '85 hit lefty.
He also spent a lot of time this offseason doing upper body strengthening. Look at his shoulders, and this is a theory, whether you buy it or not, I don't know. The sloped shoulders, some say the sloped shoulders on a hitter give them better plate coverage. Gives the arms a little longer extension instead of squared off shoulders. You can reach the outside corner a little bit more. You buy that? Why not, huh?
You look at Don Mattingly. There's some evidence for you.
How about Joe D. DiMaggio with those strong shoulder muscles, those sloped shoulders?
Two and two with 2 out, and Moseby at second. Grounded slowly toward White. This should finish the inning, and it does. No runs, an infield hit. A stolen base, and a man is left. Leonard shaking his head, discouraged about something. We're in the middle of the third.
This is Marv Albert in New York. In Cleveland, Jack Morris served up his 5th home run of this young season. Joe Carter of the Indians with a man on, his 2nd of the year. Indians lead the Tigers 2-0 in the first. Cleveland still batting. Back to Bob and Tony.
Okay, Marv, and the Indians are not going to have trouble scoring runs this year. They've got the hitters, Jacoby and Tabler, Thornton if he's healthy, Brett Butler at the top of the order, and Joe Carter, who might blossom as a star this year. But the Indians pitching in '85 was the major league's worst since the '62 Mets, and they've got to do something about that.
Julio Franco's an outstanding offensive player. Brooke Jacoby. Andy Thornton, if he comes back for a full year, he'll throw some numbers on the board for you.
Acker has retired the first 6 Kansas City hitters. Motley starts it in the 3rd against him. Since the Royals poured it on and won 11-0 in Game 7 of the series against the Cardinals, people tend to forget that it was Motley who got him started with the 2-run homer off Tudor.
It was not a short one either. It was a long home run. He and Pat Sheridan platooned a lot 2 years ago. They had outstanding numbers between them. That was kind of a surprise to the baseball world. All of a sudden, the Royals let Pat Sheridan go. A guy who could run, throw, looked like he could hit, had the potential to.
2-1. Sheridan was signed by the Tigers. He's at Nashville now. Sparky Anderson says he expects to have him back up with the big club after he gets maybe 50 to 100 at-bats at AAA.
Right-handed pitcher Joe Beckwith, they let him go. Royals, he signed the Blue Jays. He's in their farm system. Jim Acker says he's been a reliever primarily. He hasn't had some starts in the big league. He said his toughest problem starting this spring was learning to pitch from a windup position instead of the stretch. He said, every time I just got a mental block, I'd stand on the mound, go to the stretch position, because he was relieving, as all relievers do now, or most of them, pitching from the stretch with or without nobody on base.
Mullenix throws Motley out. Now, as a reliever, had Acker opened innings working from the stretch?
Batting 8.
Yep.
Number 8.
The reason why I ask, I don't know if the statistic has any relevance at all, but opposing hitters had an on-base percentage well above 400 against him when leading off an inning, and then after that he would be effective. That's a year ago. Sundberg. Line drive into right center. Mosby tracks it down.
Mosby might not have the quickness of a Gary Pettis getting out of the blocks, but once he gets on the move, he gobbles up the ground. And you can say the same thing of the other 3 outfielders. Probably the best of the 3 is Barfield and Wright, but Mosby can chase it down too. Has a good throwing arm, much better than average, as does George Ballin left. Barfield, he's another world with his throwing arm.
Here's Arrhenis Antonio Angel Salazar. At Tidewater a year ago in the Met organization, hit .252. 166 lifetime as a major league hitter prior to this season. Squib foul, 1-1.
Onyx Concepcion, another who was released by the Royals. And he said, I'm not going to even try and catch on with anybody. If I can't beat Buddy Biancalana out, I don't deserve to be in baseball.
Watch what you say about Buddy.
That is not a truism. I'm saying what Onyx said.
You know, I discovered this weekend, fans of the David Letterman show here in Kansas City have 2 reasons to be angry. First of all, an American icon, Buddy Biancalana, benched, a man immortalized by Letterman, benched for Arrhenis Salazar. Then I looked to watch the Letterman show Thursday night here. They delay it on the local affiliate half an hour. For what? For Meet the Press? For something you could understand? No. For reruns of The Dating Game. This is the kind of thing that weakens a person's faith in the future of our nation.
The legend was further enhanced, the Buddy Bianca legend, by Len Berman.
Here's the 2-2. Bounce to second, Garcia. What did Berman do?
Fantasy.
Oh, that's right, on the fantasy show. We'll talk more about that when we come back. Acker has retired 9 in a row. You know, Tony, I'd almost forgotten, but on Len Berman's fantasy show, Buddy Biancalana faced a 17-year-old kid from his old high school in California, and the kid retired him on a short fly to left field. That was his sports fantasy.
Well, you almost forgot because you're still on cloud 9, having Mickey Mantle come all the way out to Salisbury to present the award in a little pair of cowboy boots.
So
congratulations.
nice,
that was nice.
Thank you.
Congratulations. I wouldn't have rated you there, but what the heck? I didn't have a vote.
One without your vote. Mullenix up Sean Bell. Right at Brett. Almost knocked the pins from under him, but he held on. Won his first Gold Glove a year ago. in addition to all his hitting exploits?
He was overly maligned as a defensive player. There are very few third basemen, and I include the Nettles or the Buddy Bell when Buddy was in this league, covered as much or more ground than Bell. We'll show you on the replay the quick reactions. He's up in case Mullick's would bunt. The ball almost goes through his legs. It's very, very hard. He got in trouble with his throwing more often than not.
It's softly into center with Wilson racing in to make the catch.
Now, Ralph Kiner's line on Gary Maddox in his prime with the Phillies applies to Willie Wilson. What was Kiner's line? That
The left fielder, George
the earth is
Bell.
covered 2/3 by water. Gary Maddox covers the other third. You could say that this guy right here. He's gone back twice over his head, plays shallow. Now a little looper that you'd think the second baseman would get easily. He takes it easily. Gives that shortstop and second baseman a little bit of a breather, doesn't it?
George Bell takes a strike. He's hitting .500 for the year, 9 for 18. Including his 0 for 1 today. Has a homer and 4 doubles.
A pure hitter, George Bell.
Curveball popped up. It's a 1-2-3 inning for Leonard. Your assessment so far?
Can't be much better, can he?
Back in a minute. Chris Everett Lloyd is among the competitors in Family Circle Cup action coming up next following baseball from Hilton Head on NBC.
Leading off for the
Dennis
Royals.
Leonard really has had command so far, hasn't he?
Of the breaking ball, the changeup. Spotted his fastball. He's come inside when he's had to. Here's another reason why the Royals should be stronger this year, having Lonnie Smith all year long, along with Rudy Law. Dennis Leonard, they hope. He looks like he's back.
Breaking ball for a strike from Acker. Lonnie Smith has played in the World Series with 3 different clubs in this decade. Phillies in 80, Cards in 82, and against the Cardinals for the Royals last year. How many World Series rings did you get with the Yanks? 7?
We didn't always take rings. A little bracelet for Mom, wristwatch for the wife, a couple rings for the kids, father.
Well, Lonnie Smith has 3 different World Series rings with 3 clubs.
Frankie Crusetti, maybe the record holder. He's got 23, Yogi 21. Although I think the late Pete Shee, he may have them all top.
Yankee clubhouse man.
He was there with Ruth and Gehrig and the boys, too, aside from through DiMaggio and Mantle.
No one has reached base against Acker through the first 10 Royals hitters, and Jim has struck out 3. The Mets and Phillies are tied at 2 in the 3rd. Carlton against Fernandez, 2 left-handers going. Ray Knight had a homer in the game for the Mets. Wilson flied to left in the 1st.
They're really tightening up in the infield. Mullick's, of course, up tight, as is Upshaw at first. But even the shortstop and second baseman are affected by Willie Wilson. He lays any bunt down that gets by the pitcher. The pitcher has to cover the bag. He's going to beat him there, more often than not from the left side.
Pitch outside. As Tony mentioned, Jimmy Williams and Al Widmar, the pitching coach, hope for 6, maybe 7 at the outside from Acker. Most of his work has been in relief. He hasn't built up the stamina to go the distance yet. At least they don't think so. I saw him in spring training against the Cardinals. He was overpowering for 5, began to tire. His pitches came up, and the Cardinals hit him hard in the 6th and 7th innings.
Widmar is not a pitcher that goes by how many pitches you threw or what inning you're in. There's a knuckle curve that backed up, went the other way, maybe overthrowing it. He's kind of a field pitch, like Bert Hooton's knuckle curve. But Widmar says, I keep it just for the record with a little counter. He said, but sometimes the pitcher will go out there through 40, 50 pitches, and because he's out of sync, out of rhythm, he gets tired. Sometimes you can go 100 and 150, and because everything's flowing together, you can throw the ball all day long and not lose effectiveness. Al Widmar. There's a guy right there in his minor league career. He challenged the reserve clause. He may have been the first. He was making more money in AAA. They sold his contract to the big leagues. I believe the St. Louis Browns. He refused to report. Happy Chandler stepped in and said, we'll get you some money on the side, kid. Just go. Mess up this good deal we got here in ownership.
Acker fans the first two here in the fourth, 4 for the game, and as Brett heads for the plate, let's go to New York.
This is Marv Albert in New York. In Philadelphia, Mike Schmidt with a 2-run single ties the game at 2 against a wild Sid Fernandez. First hit of the game for the Phils in the 4th now, even at 2. Back to Bob and Tony.
All right, Marv, Brett to the plate. He has 4 hits so far this year in 15 at-bats, 2 doubles, and 2 homers. Hit the homers in 1 game Wednesday at Yankee Stadium.
He had 2 off-speed breaking balls for doubles. In yesterday's ball game, he crushed the fastball. They walked him once. They threw a fastball. He lined out to left yesterday, or first time up today, rather. You better mix up your pitches if you pitch to him at all. He has learned to take the ball outside and hook it or pull it, as they say. He used to hit that ball to left field when he was a kid. He's learned to really wait on off-speed stuff. The late Charlie Lau. The bat touching his left shoulder. The weight shift from back to front.
Now it's 3-0, and you can bet Brett is swinging if he sees something he likes. Called strike. It was on the outside corner. Brett has worn the Blue Jays out. Look at this. The guys in the truck thinking right along with me, even more so than most of the league. 368 lifetime against Toronto. And there's the walk.
And what would George's home run production be outside of this park? You know, like St. Louis. I mean, plus the supporting cast. Don Mattingly has a great supporting cast. He is a great hitter and a great player. Mattingly doesn't have the Winfields around him and Baylors and the Hendersons in front of him.
Well, it's interesting to note that fewer home runs were hit in Royal Stadium than any other American League ballpark, 110. The average, not the top total, the average is 155 per park. At least it was last year. And despite that, Brett hit 30 and Balboni hit 36 playing for this ball club. Here's McRae. Off-speed pitch swung on and missed.
So who else should be the first base runner off Acker, huh?
He's going. Pitch is a called strike, and the throw into center field, but he'll stay as it's backed up by Fernandez.
Damo just missed the ball. I don't know if he took his eye off it. Damaso Garcia saw Brett sliding hard. Brett is the consummate gamer in all areas. Defensively, base running.
The throw had him beat, I believe.
Yep.
Yeah.
Just off the edge of the webbing. He may have taken his eye off it when he saw George Brett coming. A good position to be in to tag it, but then he tried to swing that leg out of the way. Look at George pop up. He's going to third if the ball rolls too far.
A called third strike. So Acker strikes out the side with the walk and the stolen base by Brett mixed in. They still don't have a hit off of him, and we'll be back following these messages from your local station. The scouts, the lifeblood of the game. Frank Malzone working for the Red Sox. Terrific third baseman for them. Your old teammate, Hank Bauer, never offered a Brill Cream commercial. And Buck O'Neill, who scouts now for the Cubs. Outstanding player in the Negro Leagues. And can he spin those yarns about Satchel Paige, Josh Gibson, and the rest?
Over last year, about 3 hours after a night game, sitting with Buck. Tells the story of the Negro World Series. I believe it was 5 of 8 games, not 4 of 7, where Satchel told his infielders to sit down, outfielders to come in. He said, Josh, you've had it.
Lonnie Smith in pursuit of the drive by Barfield, and he's got it on the warning track.
There's a ball right there. You can say all you want about Lonnie. He will surprise you with his throwing arm at times. He gets a good jump, looking right into the sun. The ball is hooking and a tricky win in that corner, even though it wasn't hit that high. So he will get in the corner and save some doubles and outrun some baseballs to left center field.
of all active players, only Dave Kingman has a lower lifetime fielding percentage as an outfielder than Lonnie Smith. But there the comparison ends for the reasons you cited, Tony. Kingman was stationary when he played the outfield, doesn't anymore, DH first base, whereas Smith will make some spectacular plays to offset his miscues. And he does have a pretty good throwing arm. Here's Fielder. Shallow center. White in front of Motley for the catch. Wilson, I meant to say.
Do you think he doesn't control everything out there? A much easier play for either Frank White or especially Darryl Motley, and Willie said, let me take him, folks. He's always up at the top of the pack in assists, or rather chances. If there is a weakness, it's the throwing arm. But on the artificial surface, he's learned to charge the ball and get rid of it in a hurry.
Martinez grounded a short in his first appearance. If you had spent the last 3 years in a foreign country, just about the only difference you would note looking at Dennis Leonard, slightly more reliance on the breaking pitch, might have lost a little bit off the fastball, but he is very close to being as effective in terms of working the hitters. But if you saw him come off the mound on the bunt by Fernandez or the topper by Mosby, there you would see the difference. The mobility greatly lessened.
Exactly what you talked about. Not quite the fastball he once had, because Martinez looked like he was sitting on a fastball. Leonard tried to put a little something extra on it, and Buck still got the barrel of the bat out and pulled him. Asked Hauser and Gary Blaylock, the pitching coach, what do you want from Leonard? They said, we want at least 8 innings. We're not looking at 5 innings or 100 pitches.
Back is Salazar. In is Wilson to call him off. So 3 fly balls take care of the Blue Jays quickly in the 5th. Still no score, and we'll be back.
Doyle Alexander has been the biggest winner on this Blue Jays staff the last 2 years with 34, more than even Dave Stieb. A few weeks ago, he requested a trade. He'll be a free agent at the end of this year. Remember, the Yankees paid his salary a long time when Bobby Cox and Pat Gillick picked him up. Hanging breaking ball from Akron when the back pitches was made. Incidentally,
nice play by the kid down the left field line, and then he messes it up.
He's over
as he
hustling.
stumbles.
We had heard, whether it's accurate or not, looks like Houston needs some starting pitching. That Al Lamacchia, vice president scout, may be in the Houston area scouting. They've talked about Denny Walling, the left-handed bat.
That's the first hit for the Royals as White just reached for one and served it into center field.
Royals offense wasn't very potent last year. You look at it, they were second last in the league to Texas in runs scored, down at the bottom in team batting average. Kind of a team where you can use the expression that the sum of the parts is greater than the whole. When you look at what they did last season, say how? They're pitching, I guess, and Brett.
In foul ground, Upshaw runs out of room.
Balboni has a lot of holes. Talk about being able to throw the ball by him, up and in, bat on breaking balls, will go after bad pitches. They say he hits a lot of mistakes. Once in a while, though, he'll hit a good pitch. He is a hard swinger and just generates tremendous power with those shoulders and arms.
Of his club record, 36 homers, 17 were hit here, 19 on the road. Balboni has never been able to really produce in postseason. His batting average in the World Series was okay, but all singles in 60 postseason at-bats, he has never had an extra base hit. And that's what they pay him for. Mullenix to second for the force and on to first. Double play.
That was a pretty nice play at both the 5 and 4 spots defensively. But Mullenix going down the line and the ball hit very hard. Looked like another hanging breaking ball. That's a couple he has thrown in this inning. Mullenix from foul territory. And with Frank White bearing down, Garcia gets rid of it from down under. Gets the slow-footed Balboni.
Not many would have been doubled on that play. Balboni was. Motley swings on the first pitch. Fernandez shades his eyes and has it. So the Royals managed their first hit, but White is erased on the double play. And at the end of 5, no score. So it's the Superstars tomorrow on NBC at 4 Eastern Time. Mark Gastineau, Willie Gauld, and Vince Coleman of the Cardinals among the competitors. You'd have to say that as of right now, Dick Howser is pretty well pleased. Even if Leonard should falter a little bit and weaken here, he has seen enough to know that Leonard can help him.
It's the kind of nice problem you like to have, with Gubaza having a control problem a lot of his career. Again yesterday, what happens? Does Leonard become a starter and Gubaza a middle reliever?
Soft fly ball winds up in Wilson's glove.
I mean, he's almost in dead right field. He not only covers the ground, but he pays particular attention, Willie Willison I'm speaking of, to the charts. And Dick Howser keeps very in-depth charts, how to play defenses off each pitcher and situations. Look at how shallow it is.
6th put out already. Howser will be 50 next month.
We're looking at a guy at the plate, Lloyd Mosby, hit a ball about 440 feet into the bullpen yesterday, and you saw how shallow Willie Wilson was playing him. That's the confidence he has on going back on the ball. Possibly the hardest thing a center fielder has to do.
1-0 pitch with 1 out and nobody on the top of the 6th. Well, that one darted down and in on him, didn't it?
He hasn't lost a slider, has he?
We looked at Howser a moment ago in the Kansas City dugout. Let's watch the pitch again first.
Watch how late and how quickly this breaks. The hitter tries to find that little red dot as quickly as he can while the ball is spinning. Pick up the rotation. There's no dot to see on a slider like that, or Guidry's or Carlton in his prime.
The dot coming from the seam of the baseball.
Right. And that, when you grip the ball and use the seams properly for the aerodynamics and get the proper spin, you try and make the dot as tiny as you can so you don't see a flutter, because the hitter can't see it till right at the last.
2-1 pitch. 3-1. Saw Howser a moment ago. Last year, the Royals opened with 35 games against the American League East before they ever saw their own division. This year, their first 33 are against the East. A drive to center field, and Wilson glides back for his 7th putout.
We've got one heck of a pitcher's duel going right here between Leonard. He's getting a lot of the publicity, well should, from this marvelous comeback. Acura's pitched as well or better.
Tony Fernandez.
Talking about the Royals opening up against the American League East, widely regarded not only as baseball's best division, but maybe the best division in team sports. The Royals have been, through the years, a slow-starting team. And considering that they open against the tough American League East, Howser will tell you if he can win 16-17 of the first 33, he's got his team positioned well enough. That's how he felt a year ago. Slap toward Brett. Uses his chest to stop it, picks it up, and throws Fernandez out. Another look as we head to commercial. He was playing him in close to protect against the bunt and throws him out. Sundberg, Salazar, and then back to the top of the order for Lonnie Smith in the bottom of the 6th. No runs, 2 hits, no errors for the Blue Jays. 0-1-0 for Kansas City. Acker against Leonard. Fastball to Sundberg for a strike. The Acker fastball must be set up. It's not strong enough to use it exclusively or to rely on it 60-70% of the time.
He's learned to spot the ball like that, though. Inside of the one on the outer edge, and his fastball always has some kind of movement on it. It sinks, it runs away. He'll four-seam one to make it ride a little bit up and in on right-handers to keep them honest.
1-2 to Sundberg.
Acker, another product, University of Texas. Cliff Gustafson, one of the great college teachers and coaches. He must have 7 or 8 players in Major League now. There's the wicked knuckle curve.
And wicked it was. Watch it again as Sundberg swings and misses.
It's no contest.
The shortstop, Angel Salazar.
Sundberg, who hits the ball the opposite way, is probably going to try and go to right field on this. And he swung over that ball by about 1.5 feet.
A late breaking son of a gun, isn't it?
Oh.
Now here is Salazar.
That's what he'll do to you. He's tough. You don't lean over the plate too often on him and look for breaking stuff. A nice brush back pitch.
And Salazar answers with a base hit. Barfield backhands it, and against his arm, nobody tries anything.
The Venezuelan, Argelis Salazar. Ozzie Chen, what did he make? 12 errors last year. He's Venezuelan, and of course, Concepcion and Carrascal, and a great heritage of Aparicio, shortstops from Venezuela. Can he be that for the Royals? They're taking a chance.
Hauser genuinely feels this is more than just a minor acquisition. He thinks Salazar can be a long-term answer. He gave Biancalana every chance to win the job in spring training. And if you know Buddy Biancalana, and if you were charmed by the story last year, and who wasn't, you had to be rooting for him. But Buddy did not hit well in spring training, and the Royals made the late move. They pitch out. Nothing is on. How about Martinez behind the plate for the Blue Jays in terms of springing up out of that crouch coming off the broken leg?
That's one thing they were very concerned about. He never had the running speed, was never a potent offensive player, but pushing off, he's gone. Foul out of play. Pushing off, and he didn't do that very well in spring training. He has a quicker release usually and a stronger arm than the other catcher, Ernie Webb. Usually. Lonnie Smith was trying to shoot that ball in the gap between Garcia, who cheats an awful lot in double play situations towards second base. Smith was trying to get it between Garcia and Upshaw. You can see what he was shooting through. Many times the pitch inside and up is easier to get that way than the pitch away. Hit the opposite way. One of the theories, Luke Appling talked about this, keep the right elbow in so the barrel head trails. You can't do that on outside pitch.
Inside. 2-1.
It's that game that goes on between the hitter and the pitcher, and the catcher's involved too, suggesting pitches and locations. You think he's going to hit the opposite way, you sink the ball low and in, try and force him to pull it to the left side.
He's going again, and Smith tries the same thing but fouls it off. How about the situation later today out on the West Coast? The A's and the Angels. Joaquin Andujar, his suspension having been shortened by Commissioner Uberoth, will pitch his first game for the A's, and who will be behind home plate? Don Denkinger.
I believe they've already shook hands in spring training, though.
Yeah, they did. Andujar declares he's his amigo now. Not going on the 2-2. And Smith is late on a fastball.
Thing about it, Denkinger was always a good umpire, still is. He blew one call. He's admitted that. The man who is behind home plate just called that last strikeout on Lonnie Smith, although it wasn't swinging. He bounced back and became a much better umpire. I'm talking about Larry Barnett, the home plate umpire, from the incident. Remember the Armbruster Fisk incident? The hate mail, the death threats from Boston Red Sox fans. It made him a better umpire, and it made him a lot of money, too, in the banquet circuit.
That was the 1975 World Series, and Denkinger cashed in with some appearances during the offseason this year. Willie Wilson has flied out and struck out. Acker has fanned 7. Foul ball.
Perhaps more importantly, he has walked just 1. He has had a history at times, even in relief, getting behind hitters. It's interesting with Jim. Last year, the first 3.5 months, he had an exceptional year for Bobby Cox, and then he got lost, probably because Lamp was just so overpowering in doing the job. Acker got lost in the shuffle, and he got to thinking, you know, if I stay in the role middle relief, I'm not going to make much money in this game. As a starter, if he moves up in the rotation, he could become a big money pitcher if he pitches effectively, of course.
What about the tentative pitching pairing Wednesday. The Indians and the Yankees, Joe Niekro and Phil Niekro are scheduled.
Winningest brother combination in Major League history.
300 of them belonging to Phil. Salazar at first, 2 outs. There he goes on the 1-1 pitch. Good pitch to throw on, and Martinez got him. The throw was right on the sliding Salazar, so Fernandez simply had to catch it and lay it there.
Outstanding tag also by Tony Fernandez. He didn't get right in the path of the runner. Nice sweet tag and a good release.
That's a good pitch to throw on, too. High and outside. He was able to get rid of it quickly. A look at the Royals World Championship rings from 1985. The custom dates back to 1922. First championship team to receive rings, the 1922 New York Giants. You know, Casey was a member of that team. Hit something like 350 as an outfielder for them that year. Hauser's team was down 3-1 in the playoffs and in the series and overcame the Blue Jays and Cardinals. Mullenix. A strike call from Leonard, just the 55th pitch he's thrown as we start the 7th.
Acker's got 64, and you'll get varying opinions on this. I know Tim McCarver thinks differently, but they're tight at the corners in the scoreless game in the 7th inning. Both Brett and, of course, Balboni. They're preventing the double. Here's a guy you could do that with because he does use foul line to foul line. There's a strict pull hitter. You want to guard only one foul line. That would be the proper percentage. I don't believe in guarding both on all hitters.
Tim McCarver, the Met broadcaster, as you say, makes that point. He says you give up much more when you just blindly, as if by faith, always go to guard the line. You have to consider every situation, and in some cases, you open up that hole, you'll be burned by the single so many more times than you would by the double. It doesn't make it worth the gamble.
It's the same thing. You can relate a similar thing to center field. You say, late in the ball game, play deeper if you're an outfielder to prevent the ball hit over your head. Are you going to tell that to Willie Wilson the way he goes back? He's going to catch the looper for you in the line drive too and still not get burned behind him. If he does, it's an upset. So it's not just the lines you talk about. You can talk about your outfield play in the center also.
There are a lot of things in baseball that for so many years were supposedly written in the book and no one ever questioned them. Usually those things got into the book because they had some merit, but sometimes it's good to view them skeptically. 2-2. Upshaw and Bell follow Mullenix in the 7th, scoreless game, each team with 2 hits. Jammed him, and it's rolled weakly to White for the first out. Let's go to Marv Albert in New York. Marv.
All right, Bob, and at Yankee Stadium in the 5th inning, Dave Winfield connecting against Ted Higuera, putting it out, his first of the season. First hit given up by Higuera. Yanks and Brewers tied at 1 in the 5th. Yanks still batting. Back to Bob and Tony.
Thanks, Marv. Now, on the pregame, you said the Yankees were best in the division on paper, but what about that pitching? Questionable to begin with, and then Britt Burns has the hip problem.
It was a questionable pitching staff last year, too, wasn't it? There is a big advantage that ball club has. It's called Yankee Stadium. 81 ball games there. A mediocre staff can become a very good one over a great part of the season. What the Yankees have got to do is get another pitcher who can win on the road. They were overpowering at home. That's a staff saver, Yankee Stadium.
Well, we know Ed Whitson can't pitch at Yankee Stadium. Lou Piniella has said as much, at least for a while. Not going to start him there. Fans are too brutal. Let him get a few wins on the road.
The Yankees were under 500 on the road last year.
Well, they got a strong performance last night from the youngster Bob Tewksbury.
I think that's one of the reasons they let Phil Niekro go. You know, they've got Guidry, who's much more effective in Yankee Stadium than on the road. Phil Niekro, much more effective in Yankee Stadium. They needed to get a starter in there who could win not only at home, but on the road. They hope it's Tewksbury. If not, they got a kid named Drebeck who may come up before too long.
1-2 to the cleanup man, Upshaw. Just missed 2-2. And you say the Orioles are best on paper.
I think they're going to win it. I don't think, their defense may be criticized. Wiggins is going to be an offensive threat. I believe of the 6 starters who've had success in the Oriole uniform, if just 3 come back, and Tippy Martinez.
In the air to left. Back goes Lonnie Smith, and he stumbles. Oh, Lonnie.
That's in This Week in Baseball. the sun and the wind, but he did recover.
They don't call him skates for nothing. And I'll repeat the line from last year's playoffs. Lonnie Smith plays left field the way you'd imagine Steve Martin would play Hamlet.
I like that line the first time better than the second, but it's still up for Paul. He turned his back. He may have gotten hurt. As Dick Hauser's going to fly out there in a hurry. Mickey Cobb going to stay. What did he damage? Did he bang his knee on the turf?
His pride.
His ankle. Well, no, he didn't. He really and authentically had to hurt something here. He did not want any more attention after that. And all this does is draws more and probably more replays and all else. I think when he tried to reverse his field, he turned his ankle. He started back, and then these things can be very serious. You get the rubber cleats caught on the turf. They've already got Rudy Law out. If you join us late, he got hit on the left elbow, so that's why Motley's playing. These things can get serious. And as Hauser said yesterday and again today, he said, you know, Lonnie Smith gets criticized sometimes for lack of defensive play. He said, but he plays through a lot of injuries. When he's hurt and gets out, he's really hurt.
Well, the laughter now turns to concern for Lonnie Smith.
Paul McGannon, the trainer out there to help, along with George Brett, Darryl Motley. That's a little more speed out of the lineup. Rudy Law is going to be an outstanding offensive player now that he's on the turf out of Chicago. That may have been it right there. When he tried to change direction, you could see the left ankle when he tried to push off. He probably twisted it. This looks similar to basketball, rolling that ankle over. That's another guy they can't afford to lose for a long period of time, because if he does, they don't have somebody to get on base like he does and is a running threat, they pitch even less to George Brett, which you want to do to start with. Lee May, the hitting instructor, looks like that Jamie Quirk on the right. I can't tell for sure.
Lynn Jones goes in, the veteran reserve outfielder. Rudy Law hit on the elbow by a pitch yesterday. X-rays were negative. He's available to pinch run, but he can't play in the field or bat for 2 or 3 days. So Lynn Jones is the guy in place of Lonnie Smith.
In place of the injured Lonnie Smith, number 35, Lynn Jones.
Used to be with the Tigers.
These players just coming out of spring training, especially in Florida, where you get high skies and a wind. In Arizona, you get high skies, but you don't have the wind factor. But they get a lot of practice in Florida on balls like this. There is not a cloud in the sky. The sun is glaring right into Lonnie's face when he was out there. And the wind factor, which we saw early in the ball game, on the ground rule double by Barfield.
As we resume, it's George Bell. He has twice popped a second.
Not a cloud in the sky. Made it tougher for Lonnie.
Leonard back to work. Breaking ball for a strike. Again, we remind our viewers we'll select the Miller Light Beer of the game at the conclusion of the contest. That award goes to help out the Multiple Sclerosis Foundation.
We're looking at two pitchers who are the front runners right now, aren't we? Too early to say an indication of tiring. The curveball, he's had pretty good command of it. Up in the strike zone, the ball.
In the air to right field, Motley to the edge of the warning track for the catch. We're heading for the bottom of the 7th and heading for another edition of Baseball Remembers.
This is Marv Albert in New York at Yankee Stadium. An explosive 5th inning for the Yankees. Butch Weiniger with a second 3-run home run of the season, preceded by a Dave Winfield home run. They're whacking around Ted Higuera. Yankees 4, Milwaukee 1. Still batting, 5th inning. Back to Bob and Tony.
Well, that didn't happen to Teddy Higuera much as a rookie a year ago.
They got another kid, Juan Nieves, a left-hander. His first year. Tim Leary's there, Bill Wegman. You have a little bit improved pitching staff. The stats on Acker, the numbers, 64 pitches. He's getting ahead of hitters just like Dennis Leonard is. And some say that's the secret of it. They've been able to throw their off-speed pitch over, make their fastballs look better.
Wilson, Brett, and McRae in the last of the 7th.
He's going to try and bunt.
Well, Mullenix thinks the same thing as he's inching in close. Ball 1.
He's a guy that you can come tight on, but if he gets it down, even though the element of surprise might not be there, if it's in a good spot, you still can't get him. Try to slap it by Mullenix.
1-1 to him.
So here's an example where the Blue Jays are not doing with Kansas City. Willie Upshaw is not playing right on the line at first base, taking away a double from Wilson. Neither is Mullenix. So Jimmy Williams' strategy different than Dick Hauser's.
2 balls and a strike to Willie Wilson.
There's two guys in the ballpark today who've got to really appreciate this kind of pitching. One is a Hall of Famer, Don Drysdale. The other one's going to be a Hall of Famer, catcher Johnny Bench. Going to be doing a ball game out here tomorrow for ABC.
Grounded to Garcia. Nice easy hop, and that's 1 out. Now it'll be Brett who's flied out and walked.
The third baseman.
No way that you throw him a strike. That's what I say. I don't know what Martinez is thinking and Acker's thinking and Jimmy Williams thinking.
I still say that the key at-bat of the playoffs last year was Game 3, right. The Blue Jays are very close to sweeping the series when you think about it. They're ahead 2-0. They've gone ahead in Game 3, 5-2. Now it's been cut to 5-3. It's either the 5th or 6th inning. Brett's at the plate. He's homered and he's doubled. Alexander has always given up a lot of homers. Several balls have been hit hard against him, and they let him pitch to Brett as the tying run in that situation, and he homered again. I say if they get Brett out, they might very well have swept the series, and they almost certainly would have won the series. Either get him out or don't pitch to him at all.
You may be right.
2-0 pitch. 2-1.
The thing about George is, and it happened about early in September, and out of frustration, and when the pennant race heated up, he started swinging at pitches out of the strike zone to try and pick up his team when they were pitching around him so much. And he had a couple of weeks of a lull because of that.
A smash for a base hit. A 1-out single for Brett.
Appeared to be a knuckle curveball that didn't have quite the bite on it. Don Gordon, for that reason, sinker and slider, one of the youngsters on this staff, a rookie, begins to throw. They may see some signs of Acker losing it. He's given them a lot today.
Here's early word on Lonnie Smith. Appears to be a sprained ankle. They're taking him for x-rays as a precaution. McRae's 0 for 2. Brett stole a base the last time he was on. Running selectively a year ago, he stole 9 in 10 attempts.
Dick Hauser a couple of years ago told him to hold his base running down. Said, I don't want you sliding so hard to break up double plays. You're more valuable to us in the lineup every day than getting a minor injury and sitting out.
But just to clarify what I meant when Alexander faced Brett, I'm just thinking, considering how Alexander was weakening at that point in the game, Game 3 of the playoffs, and how Brett had homered and doubled against him, no way you can let that pitcher pitch to him. Rolled slowly towards short. Fernandez only play is to first, and what a play! Now, granted, McRae doesn't run well, but that is still an incredible play.
And it's not just the fact that he threw all the way across the diamond underhanded. It's the fact that he had the sense to be able to see George Brett out of the corner of his eye. Many shortstop would have flipped for the lead runner at second base to get Brett. He knew Brett's speed, what kind of jump he got off the bag. And it is bang, bang, a tough call for Nick Bremigan, and the right call. The throw was enough, but not to throw to second base might have been even more. That is something you cannot teach, that kind of instinct.
Now it's up to White, who singled his last time. It was the first hit Acker allowed. It came in the 5th.
And let's please give some credit to Brett for the jump he got off first base to get in the scoring position in the scoreless ball game. That'll show you just another thing that the consummate gamer does. Keeps the inning alive, or at least gets in scoring position.
Turned away from it, fouls it off. It's 0-2. Balboni is on deck. Acker dueling with Leonard. Good ball game and an even better story with the return of Dennis Leonard. And to say he's been sharp would be an understatement. Up high.
That's not the kind of pitch they want to see Jim Acker throw. It had no purpose up in the eyes. If it's up and in, off the plate, okay. You may jam him, you may swing through it. He's tired. You can just see he's struggling a little bit. He hung the curveball early in this game, or early in this inning. Brett, the ball he hit was kind of a roller rather than a snapping knuckle curve. Al Widmar on the right knows it. Jimmy Williams knows it. They're hoping because he's pitched so well, he deserves to finish this inning off. But to get at least through this inning, maybe one out of Acker. They may have Hanky if they get a lead. Or one out of Gordon, excuse me.
Ferraro in the third base coaching box. 2 balls, 2 strikes, and 2 outs. Brett at second base, no score, bottom of the 7th.
The most that Jim Acker pitched in spring training, I believe, was 6 innings. Some of them were hard 6 innings with a lot of base runners and hits.
Breaking ball high. These teams played 12 regular season games last year. Royals won 7 of them. Almost all were close. 10 decided by 2 runs or less. Several went to extra innings. And, of course, their playoff series went the distance. White reaches for it and pops it up on the changeup. Upshaw goes into foul territory to make the catch. So Acker makes a very good pitch when he needs it to finish the inning. 7 complete and no score. Yesterday's starter and winner Clancy, tomorrow's pitcher Steve, and Bill Caudle, who had come back in great shape in spring training, but now is on the disabled list with a sore right shoulder. They've got Caudle, Lavelle with an elbow, and Tom Filer, who's also hurt, all on the disabled list. One and one the count to Barfield, leading off in the 8th. No score.
Caudle made a trip 2 days ago on a Texas same-day trip to see Dr. Job. Lavelle is out there right now seeing Dr. Job.
So you might say that Caudle and Lavelle are the patients of Job.
A hardy hard.
Moving right along. A long drive, left field. Lynn Jones back. Wynn does kill it on the track.
Yeah. Jesse coming back saying, I wish I'd hit that in June, July, or August when that summer breeze is coming out of the south. It's a north breeze now. You can see the flags, and it's killed 2 of his balls from going in the seats. One was a ground rule double, but it probably would have been foul.
Cecil Fielder 0 for 2. Looks like it'll be out of play. Motley over. No chance.
You wonder when that telephone is going to ring down in the Royals bullpen. He's into the 8th. You can see how forgiving this park is here in Kansas City. Like St. Louis, like Yankee Stadium. Yankee Stadium only in left field, though, in center field.
Now, Leonard has allowed only 2 hits in the game, none since the 3rd. He's retired the side in order every inning since the 3rd.
14 in a row set down now.
And think of the 2 hits against him. There was that weird wind-blown ground rule double by Barfield that Lonnie Smith couldn't find, and then a little topper by Mosby that Leonard's lack of mobility prevented him from pouncing on to throw Lloyd out. That's it.
They say they balance out. Barfield is lined out. Mullix is lined out. Wilson has chased down a couple almost to the warning track in center field. There have been some balls hit hard. In fact, there have been fewer balls hit hard off Acker than Leonard, I think.
2-1 pitch. Breaking ball fouled off. Now, what's Jimmy Williams going to do with Cliff Johnson? Age 38. He came to camp thinking, there's the new manager, that he would be the DH. Johnson did. And Cecil Fielder, who was told in late March that he was going back to Syracuse, only to have Pat Gillick change his mind the next day. Now Fielder has the job. 0 for 3 this afternoon against Dennis Leonard, who's retired 15 in a row. Let's go to Marv.
All right, Bob, and in the 5th in Philadelphia, John Russell of the Phillies with his 2-run single against Ed Lynch in relief of a wild Sid Fernandez, who walked 7 in 4 1/3. Phillies have come from behind. They lead the Mets 4-2, bottom of the 6th. Back to Bob and Tony.
Thanks again, Marv. Buck Martinez steps in and takes a ball. The strikeout a moment ago for Leonard as he got Fielder was just his second.
Leonard hasn't walked any, and Acker has walked just 1.
And Acker has struck out 7. Curveball grounded to Brett. 16 in a row retired by Dennis Leonard. They had hoped to see some encouraging signs. Instead, they have seen mastery.
Assistance will soon be on the way.
Family Circle Cup tennis coming up from Hilton Head, South Carolina next. But first, somebody's got to score a run here. We go to the bottom of the 8th. 0-2-0 for the Blue Jays. 0-3-0 for the Royals. And as our right-hand man, Steve Horn, points out, if Acker can retire 1 hitter in this inning, it'll be the longest stint of his major league career. He's never gone longer than 7. That's all they expected from them in their fondest dreams this afternoon.
And while this is going on, Jimmy Williams does have his bullpen soft tossing.
Grounded foul by Balboni. Good range shown by Ferraro.
Don Gordon up and throwing again. He will use Tom Henke, like Hauser prefers to use Quisenberry, only to hold a lead late. Jimmy Williams checking the defense over.
Fastball lifted to left center field. No chance.
Nope.
Won't even make the track. Mosby has trouble with the sun.
What a play by Bell. What a play by Bell. A good tip for you kids now. Why on those high fly balls are at any level, you run over and help each other out in the infield or the outfield, because all of a sudden it got right in the center of the sun. And if not for George Bell's alertness,
Right fielder,
this is a double.
Errol Buckley.
Now, right now, Mosby is yelling him off, saying, "I've got it." Then he lost it. And Bell makes a great recovery.
He sure did. First of all, the fans thought it had...
He's got the glasses down, Mosby, and trying to look. I don't know if he's got an open web glove or not. Al Kaline used to look right through the open webbing of the glove to block out the sun with sunglasses. But still, if it's in the center, which that was, it isn't going to come out.
At first, with Balboni at the plate, the fans thought it had a chance to be an extra base hit, but the wind took care of that, and then the adventure continued with Mosby fighting the sun and Bell alertly helping him out. 2-0 to Motley in the offseason. There was all kinds of speculation about how they'd handle their right field problem. The platoon of Motley and Sheridan, relatively ineffective a year ago. They talked about a deal that might have brought Chili Davis over. This is a long drive to left, but it's foul.
He's throwing more hanging breaking balls now, getting more fastballs up in the strike zone, where his ball does not have as much movement. He's lost a little velocity. It's always a tough call for Widmar and Jimmy Williams. Widmar can advise. Jimmy Williams has to make the final decision. A guy's going like this, you see him losing his stuff a little bit, but he's still getting hitters out. This ballpark makes the difference. If they're an exhibition stadium, I believe Acker might be out in that little ballpark. Because some of those balls might have been out of here. Look at the wind factor. Still blowing his bricks briskly from left to right.
Acker is behind Motley 3-1. Sundberg is on deck. And the count is full. Proposed deal with San Francisco had either Motley or Sheridan along with Gubazar going to the Giants for Chili Davis. And the Royals thought about it long and hard, decided against it. Now they've acquired Rudy Law, rendered expendable in Chicago by the emergence of young John Cangellosi. Off-speed pitch is really whacked to center. Mosby goes back, and again the wind comes into play, and he has room. Well, that ball was hit very well.
The Toronto staff, Steve, and as you mentioned before, Alexander gave up a lot of home runs. A lot of those due to that ballpark at Exhibition Stadium with the wind blowing to right, short dimensions, artificial surface. Gordon is ready if needed. Ballpark helps Acker again. That's why it's amazing. Steve right in the middle. You led the league in ERA, and yet barely a 500 record or worse. And people wonder why he didn't win more with that kind of ERA. They never scored him any runs. The defense behind him wasn't good. He's losing it fast.
Sundberg with the Royals' 4th base hit.
Again, it appeared to be a hanging breaking ball. We'll see. Buck Martinez sets about down the middle of the plate. Nope, it's a fastball right down the middle with not a whole lot on it. Buck's going to have a talk with him.
George Orta now moves into the on-deck circle.
Here comes Jimmy Williams.
Orta's going to bat for Salazar.
What Jimmy did was to save himself a trip, was to send Buck Martinez out, not to stall for time because they know Gordon's ready, but probably to have Martinez ask first, without him around, how do you feel? Feel maybe he'll be more honest, Ack, who's really a tough kid. I mean, he's tough. He's not going to ask out of any ball game. But Buck now is going to say, and I think he probably motioned Jimmy out saying, come on out. I think he's kind of lost it. So he's got input more from Martinez, who would be a little more truthful than from Acker.
Acker, after a terrific effort, is now done. He pitched 7 2/3. Gordon is coming in with Filer and Lavelle and Caudle all on the disabled list. Young pitchers early in the season like Mark Eichhorn, this guy Don Gordon, the lefty Steve Davis will have to play an important role for Jimmy Williams.
It could be a stronger staff with those 3 on it than the others you mentioned.
So Acker will leave, and the injustice of it is he can't possibly be the winner, and if Sundberg should score, he could lose.
It's like having 2 pitching coaches when you have Doyle Alexander there. Jim Acker was brilliant. 18 months he worked on the side with Doyle Alexander with the Alexander style change. His pitching philosophies are so good, and his pitching philosophies are not in conflict with Al Widmar, which could be a problem. Don Gordon, sinker, slider. He was the man at Syracuse last year, was the setup man for Tom Hankey, who was awesome. They brought Hankey up. He became the stopper for the AAA Farm Club. Wicked sinker, wicked slider, the pinch runner.
Biancalana runs for Sundberg. He'll stay in the game and play shortstop as Salazar is now hit for with Orta stepping in. Orta's the guy who, in effect, started all the controversy. He hit the slow roller to Jack Clark. Todd Worrell covered first in the 9th inning of Game 6. Don Denkinger probably missed the call. Swing and a miss. And the Royals went on to score 2, and from the brink of defeat won the 6th game and then blew the Cardinals out in the 7th.
Not quite yet is the 24-man roster coming into play, but you got Rudy Law. We don't know if he can hit or not. He's got the bad elbow.
Hauser told me no before the game. Biancalana chased back.
So what he's got is Jamie Quirk, catcher, left-handed hitter. Greg Pryor, right-handed hitter. He may be able to catch if something will happen to Quirk.
Fouled out of play 0-2.
You alluded to this a while ago about what will happen to Cliff Johnson. And again, if Fielder does the job, you've got 2 basically right-handed DHs. It's the same thing with Orta and McRae. 2 DHs. There's Cliff with a very attractive contract, but if Fielder continues to do the job, the Blue Jays may have to say, what do we do? Just have him there to pinch hit?
I think especially with a 24-man roster, they've got to get another left-handed bat on their bench.
Oh, they've been trying. They've got Rick Leach there now, but they've been trying for somebody with more experience, with a little more power.
0-2 pitch outside. Do they regret letting Al Oliver go?
No. Oliver did a job. There is Steve Davis, the left-hander, the only one they've got in the bullpen. They'd like to make him a starter. Have 2 left-handers, 2 right-handers. I still think they've got a deal cooking somewhere, the Blue Jays.
If only Cedeno were a left-handed batter, they never would have let him go. Cedeno now is hooked on with the Dodgers after the Guerrero injury. But really, since they wanted a DH fielder and they have 3 great young outfielders, there was no spot for Cedeno to play.
Gordon pitched the other night in Texas. Broken bat single, and he hit a man, got in trouble, gave up some runs.
2-2 pitch. Biancalana going, grounded foul. Buddy Biancalana, who replaced Ruth? George Selkirk. Who replaced Bill Russell when he retired? The immortal Henry Finkel. Well, it isn't retirement, but Buddy has been sent to the bench. And so the next answer in that long list, Angel Salazar. See if they send him again. They do. And again, it's fouled off.
Interesting, 2-2 he's sending him. If he would get thrown out, unless you put Orta in defensively, you lose Orta as a pinch hitter.
Orta has done virtually all of his work in recent years against right-handers. He's had fewer than 50. There's Biancalana at first. Fewer than 50 plate appearances in the last 4 years against southpaws.
He's a former Blue Jay. The little guy, he's got a little pop.
And there it is. Long drive to right. Barfield turns, and it's off the fence. Biancalana being waved home. He'll score the first run on the pinch double by Orta. For today, at least, the genius resides in that dugout. Boy, did Hauser pull some strings in this sequence.
Could I just finish my sentence before I hit it? I was about to say, you can't hold them short, and Barfield in this situation may be, you got to prevent an extra base hit. You can't let the ball get hit over your head. He did. We were talking about that before. You don't just change your defense at the corners, but in the outfield, too. Perhaps you should.
Would Sundberg have scored on that? Barfield with a great arm?
I doubt it. They'd have had to make a pretty good relay to Damaso Garcia and 2 good throws. The important throw wouldn't be Barfield's, and that would be Garcia's to home.
So Hauser sent in Biancalana to run, Orta to hit, and it all worked. Jones replaced Smith.
Why not put him in? He's going to be in the ballgame on defense the next inning anyway. But you are losing a pretty good catcher. The focus now, and this inning isn't over yet, goes right back on Dennis Leonard to try and get a complete game in his first start in 3 years, or almost 3 years.
He's working on a 2-hitter and hasn't allowed a hit since the 3rd. Gordon is behind Lynn Jones, 3-0. Jones thought he had the walk. Barnett thought otherwise.
It's interesting how this game is such a beautiful situation game, baseball, how now outfield play changes. You're down by 1 now. Instead of playing deep with a man on second, you cheat in a little bit because you want to make the throw a little bit shorter for a possible play at home on a ground ball or a line drive. So it was different 1 hitter ago than it is now.
Still 3-2. Acker, who had pitched so brilliantly, hoped to get through the inning. He had 2 out, nobody on. He was struggling a bit. 2 long fly balls, one by Balboni and one by Motley to open the inning. Then Sundberg reached him for a single. And the run represented by Sundberg has come across. Gordon relieved Acker, and Order rifled a double off the bullpen fence. Still 3-2 as he scatters them behind the Royals dugout.
I think it's Bob Brown of the Baltimore Orioles, a pretty good baseball man. Most of the PR department is trying to get in the books. Now the Orioles use it, that statistic for relievers called holes and preventing runs. Here's Acker sitting there, pitches great. Stands to be the loser at this point. Gordon gets the hitter out, Orta. He saves an earned run for Acker and maybe saves the game.
Slow roller that Mullenix fields. And he got it. But the damage has been done. Maybe enough damage in a game like this. We'll go to the ninth with Garcia, Mosby, and Fernandez due. If this game ends here, and time permits, we'll switch you to Philadelphia for the conclusion of the Phillies-Mets game. 4-3 Philadelphia in the 7th. Yankees continue to lead the Brewers now in the 6th at Yankee Stadium. Chicago with an early lead at Pittsburgh, 1-0 in the 4th. Seattle and Minnesota tied at 1 also in the 4th. Biancalana is the new shortstop. Jamie Quirk is the new catcher. Leonard looking for the shutout, but just in case, Quisenberry is throwing in the Kansas City bullpen. No pitch. Garcia stepped out at the last instant.
He requested time. Larry Barnett granted. It's always interesting when a new pitcher comes in the ball game. Not that the pitch selection will be different because Leonard might shake it off, but it's the pacing of putting the signs down. Sometimes a Quirk might have a different pacing or idea.
Center field, Willie Wilson again. 17 in a row, retired by Leonard.
The pacing might be different sometimes from one catcher to the next, and it gets a pitcher out of sync. If you're wondering about complete games, in the big years for Leonard, 77 and 78, when he was pitching on 3 days rest, he completed 21 games one year and 20 the next.
Is this incredible to return 3 years after his last big league start, not only with an encouraging performance, but he is on the verge of a 2-hit complete game shutout against one of the better offensive teams in the American League.
You know, if you want to make a deal now, if he can continue to pitch this way when Danny Jackson comes back, does that mean Gubicza goes to the bullpen, or does he become an expendable commodity where you can trade? With a great arm like he does, you don't want to get rid of it, but if Leonard's back, it gives you a little some more grist for trading if you're thinking that way.
Of course, the Cy Young Award winner, Brett Saberhagen, had a hand in that figure. What a day yesterday for Saberhagen. Picks up his World Series ring, his Cy Young Award, and celebrates his 22nd birthday. There's the Royals owner, Ewing Kauffman, along with his wife,
Mrs.
Muriel.
Kauffman. In a couple of years, with the buyout options or provisions, I don't know what it'll be. Mr. Avron Fogelman will completely own the ball club. They have put their hearts and souls in this team, to say the least.
1-1 pitch to Mosby. In the air to right. Motley started back, now comes in. Leonard is an out away.
A high changeup. You can see what Mosby had in mind. He wanted to get out in front of a fastball to get it in the wind to right, and Leonard knew it. He pulled the string high in the strike zone. Didn't get all of it. Oh, look at this.
With the last chance to spoil the script. Strike one. Now in sports, in our coverage of it, words like remarkable, amazing, incredible, they're thrown around too loosely. They all apply here. It's unbelievable. There's a fourth. Again, no pitch. Red is in close in case Fernandez bunts, which he tried to do earlier.
I don't know if this makes the point about pacing. Now, Leonard, you never saw this the entire game with Sundberg behind the plate. They're guarding the lines, as you see. But twice, the last two hitters, they requested time because Quirk is calling the game a little quicker.
One strike away. Leonard has struck out 2. Hasn't walked anybody. The third base hit and the first since the 3rd inning. The tying run is on and Fernandez can run. He had retired 18 straight before that.
Tony can run, but he's not really a base stealer. We're not going to see any chances taken now. Get thrown out with Mullich, your 3-hitter. Quisenberry continues to go, and Gary Blaylock's going to come out, the pitching coach. Gary Blaylock had a lot of the kid pitchers in the minor leagues. He didn't have Leonard, of course.
Listen to him boo. They want to see Leonard walk off with the victory. Well, we have a chance. Executive producer of NBC Sports, Michael Weissman. Coordinating producer for baseball, Harry Coyle. Today's game produced by John Filippelli, directed by Andy Rosenberg. Pre-game produced by Les Dennis, and we'd like to welcome Marv Albert aboard as the host of the pre-game show. We know he'll do a great job. Pre-game directed by Mary Buda-Lamusio. Technical directors Neil Flagg and Sal Nagita, as always. Our stat and research man, and he was sharp from the beginning today, Steve Horn. Tony Kubek and Bob Costas in Kansas City, and as soon as this one is over, assuming it ends here, we're going to shift you to Philadelphia for the conclusion of the Mets-Phillies game.
Look at Willie Wilson. Unlike Barfield on the right, even Willie Wilson is playing deeper to prevent a ball from getting hit over his head or to cut down the gaps. Now, one of the extra base hits was the speed you talked about with Fernandez at first.
Short lead for Fernandez. Ball 1 to Mullenix.
Mullenix, the last couple of years, has been as good as anybody on this Blue Jays team hitting with men on base. And Fernandez is there with that speed.
Pitch coming. 2-0.
Leonard, although he knows that his fastball is not as crisp as it was a few innings ago at the start of the game, so he's running the ball away that if Mullenix is going to hit it, he's going to use the big part of the ballpark. Center field, left center, where Willie Wilson can chase it down. He has stayed away from the inside part of the plate where he can jerk the ball and get it in the wind to right field. Look how deeply they're playing.
October 2nd, 1982, Leonard shut Oakland out 3-0. That's his last shutout. First start in 3 seasons. 4 knee operations. And an out away. Fernandez bluffs the goal. Called strike to Mullenix, 2-1.
2-0. He was still right on the outside edge. He's not going to let him pull anything. He's just stayed away from the breaking ball, a more pullable pitch, and the slider to this point.
Through all the hours of rehabilitation, much of it agonizing, through all the doubt, the operations, the anxiety, this is what he must have envisioned. He's on the brink of it. He's a strike away from it. Again, everybody to their feet. Stadium. A 1-0 complete game, 3-hit shutout for a man whose career appeared to be over several times. It's a true pleasure to say that this week's NBC Light Beer for Miller player of the game is Dennis Leonard. Miller Lite happy to present a check for $1,000 in his name to help fight multiple sclerosis.
Ladies and gentlemen, tomorrow afternoon, Buddy Black will pitch for the Royals against Dave Speed of the Toronto Blue Jays.
Tony, it's good to be back, especially with a story like this.
McRae, Brett, and Leonard, the consummate gamers.
They've been the heart and soul of this team for a decade. Let's go to Philadelphia. Vin and Joe.